Did you?
Yeah.
Good.
I really like the simple.
Good.
Very simple with that.
Good. Yeah. Actually, usually the last week, students are trying to finish up. And they're trying to think, oh, what can I do? What can I do? Just keep it as simple as possible. Okay. Good. I'm glad that worked. Okay. 2 more lectures left. I'm pretty excited about it. Hopefully you are too. I guess you guys have a lot of projects to do, so hopefully you can focus and get those done. I actually see a course evaluation sheet here. Luckily, it reminded me, so maybe the previous professor did it. I'm doing mine online, so you probably should have got an email a while back. If not, you can always go to evaluations.missouri.edu. Okay, here's another opportunity to get bonus points. Usually for the evaluation, I'll give some bonus points as well. Evaluations are anonymous, so I can't really see who did it, but I can see how many people did it. So I usually set a threshold like 80%. If 80% of the class does the evaluation, then I give everybody bonus points somewhere. I don't know where yet. I haven't even looked into it. I actually didn't even think about the evaluation until I saw this sheet right here. But when you do the evaluation, try to do it on a day that you're feeling good. You know, go to the coffee shop, get a coffee, and then do it. You know, don't do it when you're, Friday night, final project's due, 2 minutes before the deadline, you fill out the evaluation. Okay. Try to do it when you're in a good mood. And try to put some nice stuff there. Like if you have some comments that will really help the class, I want to hear about it. But if you're just dogging me the whole time, that doesn't really help. So try to put some nice stuff there. Be constructive, be positive. If you do have some good advice, I'd like to hear about it. Okay, so yeah, please fill out the evaluations. I will post an announcement to talk about the threshold and the bonus points for that. Also, like we were just talking about earlier, I have some videos from the previous class. Apologize about Friday. I had an unexpected event pop up that I needed to attend to. But if you go to class 40 and 41, that's what we are going to cover. And class 40, this solid design principles will really help you on the final project. Okay, just trying to focus on prototype, a simple implementation just to get that final project turned in. So go over the videos from class 40 and 41. But today we're going to be starting in class 42. Okay, notification examples. We got 2 lectures left. This lecture, it's concepts that we've already learned. Wednesday's lecture will be a new topic, and it'll be our last object-oriented design concept. Okay, so it'll be our last one. And I may ask you just like a definition question on the test. Okay, we're in class 42. Download the zip. Get it into NetBeans. In this example, what we're going to do is we're going to take threads. Okay, we're going to take what we learned in threads, and we're going to update the UI. Then we're going to mix FirePropertyChange. We're going to use FirePropertyChange on a thread, so you can see how you can do model view controller with threads. Okay, but we're not there yet. We're first going to create a new interface. We're going to see 3 ways to do it. You'll see 3 tasks. We're going to look at 3 different ways that we can do it. So we're in the taskers package, and we're going to create a new interface. Okay, our last example, we use the FirePropertyChange. The first example, we're going to make our own. So I'm in taskers. I'm going to create a new interface. We're actually going to create 2 of them. We'll start with the first one. It's going to be called notifiable. Okay, notifiable. Click on finish. Here's my interface. So I'm creating this interface to try to notify the UI. Okay, so in this interface, I'm going to have one method, public void. It's going to be called notify. It's going to take a notification or a string to update the interface. Now I have a lot of students asking me, how can I create an interface in my final project? Well, sometimes you don't know what method you need at the beginning. Sometimes you have to write the code, then you see what methods you need, and then you go back and create the interface. That's fine too. Do maybe like a reverse engineering. First get your code, create the methods that you need, and then you can see which methods are required. Whatever methods are required, then go and put those into an interface. Okay, if you've already planned this out, you already know what methods you need, that's the proper way to do it. But if you want to reverse engineer, that would also be fine. So I have this interface, and I'm going to implement this notify method. Okay, that's going to be in our first task, task 1. I would say let's say you have I'm not sure what you're doing, but let's say you're calling a API and you're pulling data, and you have one method for that API. It must be there in order for it to work. So let's say we go back to New York Times. We had that load method. Well, in order for my API request to work, I have to implement that load method. So I can put the load method in an interface and say that method is required. So a good line would be, what methods are required for my program to run? If it's a required method, put it in the interface. If it's just a method that doesn't really matter, it's kind of one that you made to help you out, then you can leave that one out. Okay, I'm going to use this interface in task 1. So we're going to look at 3 different ways. Here's the first way. You'll see here I'm extending thread. Okay, so the task 1 is a thread. You'll see it's kind of what we had before. I have my max value. It's just a for loop, and it's going to update the UI. Once I have an interface, I could use it as a type. So here I'm going to use that interface, notifiable, as a type for my notification target. Okay, that's a question on the final exam. Can an interface be used as a type? Yes, an interface can be used as a type, and we've done that several times now to try to make it more generic. So whatever class will implement this, I could use it as a type. Even if it doesn't implement it, I can still use it as a type. So an interface can be used as a type anywhere. Just like this example here, I have notifiable. That's my type. Now if I scroll down, you'll see this is my notification target. So I want to notify the UI. I want to update the UI. So if I scroll down, you'll see I have this run method. That's for the thread. I call it do notify, and it has my message that I want to notify. So if I scroll all the way down, you'll see 2 methods that we're going to focus on implementing. First is to set the notification target, and then the second one is to actually notify that target. So remember, if we're updating the UI, we have to run it on the main thread. To run it on the main thread, I call this platform run later. Okay, it takes a lambda. And then whatever I want to run on this main thread, usually it's the updating the UI part. So in my interface, okay, I have one method. It's called notify. So I'm going to call that method here and then do whatever we define it to do. Right now we haven't defined that method yet. Okay, so the first way I can update the UI is I have my own method. I have my own method, and it will call the platform run later. All three of these versions will use platform run later. What matters is whether we use our own predefined method or we use some library like the FirePropertyChange. Okay, this notify method has not been defined. We're calling it here, but we haven't defined it yet. To define it, we need to put that in the controller. Whenever I pass the notification target, we're going to define this notify method. Okay, that's going to be done in the controller. Any questions with this so far? Okay, from the controller, I do set notification target. I pass over the notification target. Maybe it's the controller. I need to pass over this notify method. Once I do, I can call it and then display the message on the front end, on the UI. Okay, so I'm jumping over to the controller. If I want to define this method, it's going to be in the controller. Okay, so I'm in the controller. I have a notifiable interface. So if I want to implement that method, the controller needs to implement that interface. Okay, you'll see notifiable there. Once I put that interface there, controller has an error. It says you must implement all the abstract methods. So I can click on that error and click on implement all abstract methods. Okay, that's another test question somewhere. If you implement an interface, you have to implement all the abstract methods. That's true. Okay, if I click that error, you'll see it adds that notify method there for me. Okay, so I put notifiable here on the interfaces list, clicked on the error, and clicked on implement all abstract methods. Okay, that notify method was used in the main thread. So if it's in the main thread, usually I'm updating the UI. So if I scroll down, in the notify method, I'll update the UI. I have a text area. So I'll go ahead and pin the text, whatever notification they passed me. Okay, here's the first way. So I have this notify method here. Now we can run it. That's going to be in task 1. So if I go to task 1, you'll see here, I create to see if the thread's created or not. If it's not created, I create a new thread. Okay, I need to set the notification target. So remember here, we're trying to do model view controller on this one. So I'm going to set it with this. I'm going to pass the current object, and I can call task1.start. When I pass this, that notifiable method will be that notify method will be passed with it. So in task 1, I can call .notify because I passed it here in this with this keyword. But now let's think about that. I want to implement model view controller, and I just passed the current object. The current object has a view element, text area, and then the doNotify method is calling that text area .append text. So we thought of task 1 as our model. Okay, this is going to violate model view controller because I'm passing over the view element into the model. Okay, if I use this keyword, everything in this object is being passed, including this method, including this view element. Okay, so that's going to violate it. Any questions with this? Let's take a look at the second example. Okay, so I'm going to create another interface in taskers. I'm going to create another interface. Let's see if we can make it where we don't pass the entire controller. So I'll create another Java interface. This one's just going to be called notification. Okay, I'm going to call it notification. Right-click on taskers, click on new Java interface. Call it notification. And we're going to try a different trick. Okay, let's try to make this a functional interface so I can use a lambda expression. So I'll still have my abstract method called handle. Takes in my message. Same as before, except this time we're going to do a functional interface. Remember the definition for functional interface. It's an interface with exactly one abstract method. If I define a functional interface, then I could use a lambda expression. Okay, so let's see that. This one's going to be in task 2. Okay, we're going to use this interface in task 2. Here's the second version. In task 2, same concept. I'm going to use the interface as a type. Okay, here's the interface as a type. Same type of thing. I have my max value. I'm going to call the run method. It's going to have a for loop. It's just going to print the for loop to the UI. Okay, once it's done, we'll call the doNotify method. Okay, if I want to update the UI, remember I have to run it on the main thread. So if I come down to doNotify, you see when the run method starts, displays a message. Every iteration of the for loop, it displays a message. And then it displays a message when it's done. Okay, we're going to be programming here at the bottom. Same type of thing. I need to set the notification, and I need to update the UI. Okay, again, updating the UI, I'm going to call platform run later. It takes in a lambda. And I'm going to call that notification handle method. But the handle method has not been defined. We still need to define that in the controller. Okay, we're just calling it here. Okay, so I'm creating an interface. I'm using it as a type. When I call this doNotify method, I need to set the onNotification. So I need to set what I want to notify. And I can call that handle method. So when I set this notification, it's going to define the handle method. Okay, any questions here? Let's see this in the controller. So in the controller, there's advantages of using the functional interface. One, I don't need to do an implements up here. It's a functional interface. There's only one abstract method. So I can actually just use my lambda. If I'm in task 2, I don't need to implement the interface. When I do a task 2 dot set on notification, okay, here I can call the interface. I can call my interface here and just need to define the handle method. Okay, so I'm going to override that handle method. There's public void handle, took in a message as a string. Now what do we want to do? We just want to take that text area and append the text with the message. So again, I'm using notification here as a type. That's my interface. But I'm using a lambda expression, so I don't need to implement the interface. I can define the handle method here as a parameter and then call task 2 start. You'll see a warning there. It says, hey, you can use a lambda. Okay, so you can turn that into a lambda. So when I call this set notification, I'm passing an instance of the interface and I'm passing the implementation to the handle method. So in the previous example, I passed this. It's going to pass the entire controller. In this example, I'm just passing this instance variable and passing over the implementation to handle. Okay, if I comment this, I'm going to show you what the lambda looks like. Here's the original. Here's the lambda. Okay, you'll see it's much nicer using the lambda. Those are equivalent. Here's the original one up here if you need it. But if I look at this and start looking at model view controller, I'm still passing over this UI object. So if we think of task 2 as our model, okay, even though I'm not passing over the whole controller, I'm still passing over this method. And this method still has a UI element. So if I pass over a UI element as a parameter, it's still going to break our model view controller. So if I wanted to use threads and model view controller, even though we're getting closer, this would still violate model view controller. Okay, I'm just passing over the handle method instead of the entire controller, but it contains a UI element. Okay, that's going to violate MVC. Let's see if this works. Hopefully it don't get all the way to the end. It doesn't even work. Okay, here's the UI. Here's task 1. Looks like I should have put a new line there. Here's task 2. You'll see task 2 is running every now and then. Probably should put a new line there. So let's put a new line here. Plus. Let's see, every time we update the message, we're going to add a new line. I may do that with task 1 as well. Okay, there's task 2 with a new line. Let's see, here's the task 1 with a new line. Back in notify. Let's see, can I show both of them? Okay, there's task 1 down below. There's task 2 up above. Okay, here's task 1, task 2. You'll see the run on the main thread. It doesn't always happen sequentially, but it's pretty close. Runs 1, then runs 2. Okay, you'll see run 1, then runs 2, then runs 1, then runs 2, depending on how it was put on the queue. Okay, even though the program works, we're trying to implement model view controller in this example. I'm passing over this view element. But let's look at the third way. Third way is I use the FirePropertyChange. So I use a library, try not to pass anything from the controller. So I'll be in task 3. Task 3 is I don't build my own interface. I use the library's interface. Okay, so here's the library. Okay, we had to implement the property change support. We've seen this before. I'll call it PCS, property change support. I'm going to pass in the, let's assume task 3 is our model. So I'm going to pass in the model. Now remember, there was a requirement with this property change support. I need to define 3 methods. One was the add property change, the other was remove, and the other was the fire property change. So instead of creating an instance of my interface, I'm going to create an instance of the property change support. Okay, same concept. Still have my for loop, still have the do notify, still want to update the UI, so I still need to call it on the main thread. Okay, the difference is in the do notify method. So if I scroll down, you'll see here's the methods I need to add. I need to add my add property change listener, remove, and then my fire property change will be this do notify method. Okay, so I'll call platform run later. I'm running it on the main thread. But in this case, I'm not going to call my own method. I'm going to call the fire property change method. I'm going to pass 3 parameters. One is the property change name. Hold on a second. Fire property change. Okay, one is the event name. I'm going to call it message. Second is the old value. Well, I don't have an old value. Third one is the new value, which would be the message. So if you don't want to pass the old value, you can always pass in an empty string. Okay, so I'm choosing not to send an old value. So I'll send an empty string as the second parameter. So here's my event's name. Here's the old value. Here's the new value. So instead of providing my own notification method, I'm going to use the fire property change. Okay, any questions with this? Rest of it's in the controller. Okay, so I have my add, I have my remove. Do notify will be my fire property change. Rest of it's in the controller under task 3. There's a few ways to write this, but we're going to keep it in a similar fashion. I'm going to call the add property change listener. Okay, create an instance of that property change listener interface. And they have one method, okay, which also probably means they use a functional interface. Which was the property change. We've seen this before. It takes in the property change event. And now what do we want to do when this property change is triggered? Okay, we also want to update the text area. Now remember, EVT was a little bit different with the stopwatch example. We did a bunch of fire property change. So they have if I do EVT and then do the dot notation, we have the property name, get new value, get old value. So I'm going to be getting the new value. But it's going to be returned as some different object. So we're going to cast it to our string. Do an explicit cast. And then do the same, add a new line. Okay, after we define property change, I can also do task3.start. Okay, you'll see another warning. It's going to say you can also use a lambda with the property change. I can use a lambda because this is also a functional interface. Okay, it only has one abstract method, which is property change. Property change takes in an event, and then we're going to update our UI because it's run on the main thread. Okay, so I got task 1, task 2, task 3. Okay, you'll see they're all ran in different ways. 3 different ways to do the update the UI. First 2 are using our own implementation. Third one's using the fire property change. Okay, you can keep the original, or you can also use a lambda in this case as well. Okay, here's what the lambda would look like. You'll see these parentheses here. That's going to be my parameter here. So it knows what function to call because there's only one function. There's only one abstract method. So here's the parameters to that method. And then here's the method's body, the block. Okay, which would be right here. Any questions with this? Okay, so this is threads with the fire property change. Any questions for me? Okay, may keep it short today. Use the time to work on your final project. Let me know if you have questions. I'll be in the office hours today, and then I'll be at the developer night on Wednesday if you need me. Okay, TAs are also there in their office hours. Remember the evaluations. We'll see you next time.